Hey, everybody, it's Barry Kleiman back talking about LinkedIn's 26 most asked interview questions. And if you've been watching these, you probably know that um, I'm going to encourage you to tell stories as you learn to answer these questions. Back when I was a younger man, I'm a guitar player. Um, I'm okay. If I play the guitar, you can hear understandable music come out. But I've had the opportunity to study with some incredible teachers. A gentleman named Dave Van Ronk, who's an old New York folkie, taught me how to play finger picking blues, and um, with the style of some old masters. Dave was Dave was the protagonist, at least his legend was the protagonist in a movie called Inside Llewyn Davis, which was a Coen Brothers movie about a New York City old folky guitar player. I was very fortunate enough to meet him, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me how to play finger picking blues guitar, and I'm very very grateful. It was hard. Um, Later in my life, about oh god, 10 years later, when I came to California, I studied under a gentleman whose name is Joe Satriani, and anybody who knows anything about guitar knows Joe's name. He's a legend at this point, really, and on the cover of many guitar magazines, he's by some people's estimation the standard by which all who all others are judged. I guess is how that goes. Anyway, Joe was a much younger than I was, amazing teacher, and he really set some intense guidelines for me. And he reminds me a little bit of myself at this point. He did not want to be anybody's intellectual entertainment, and he could really, really play, and he was a great teacher. He wanted me to accomplish certain things by a certain time, and I was really open to the urging and the coaching, and of course the technique and the knowledge. And then when our son was born, we now had two kids. I couldn't keep up anymore. So I had established a bunch of goals with Joe and Dave, but then I couldn't fulfill the goals. So I stopped studying with Joe because I couldn't do what he wanted me to do. I couldn't live to the goals that he and I discussed. Why am I telling you this story? True story. But also, today's LinkedIn question is tell me about a time that you created a goal and achieved it. So, those are two of my stories about goals that I created for myself. Again, I won't embarrass myself or anybody by picking up a guitar and playing a little bit, but I set some goals for myself as a guitar player and achieved them until I couldn't, certainly as it related to my teaching with Joe. That story that I just told you, it follows all of the kind of my principles for successful interviewing. I try to give you some context about a goal. It also told you a little bit about me and who I was, maybe outside of the premise of what it might say on my resume, because my resume certainly does not say guitar player. Could, but it doesn't. Um, it also takes a question and gives it context, right? And maybe helps to connect somebody on the other side. Somebody on the other side may not give two, you know what's about guitar playing, and somebody might say, oh my gosh, I know those guys, or gee, I know Joe, or whatever. Now you're in a conversation, and this conversation helps you connect to somebody on the other side. The Your ability to get context and turn and use it to turn interrogations into conversations will help you connect. So these are my kind of three C's, context, conversation, and connect. It will help you connect with a subset of people whom you may very well want to be connected to. And honestly, in so many ways, you don't want to be connected to people you don't want to be connected to. Life's too short and there's too many people in the world. I tell clients all the time, there's 800 million people on LinkedIn. You're just trying to get an audience and uh, connected to a very, 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 very small percentage of them. So context, conversation, and connect, and of course, be authentic. So stories really, really matter. And again, you don't need to like guitar, um, anything of the kind, but what I endeavored to do was tell you two 100% factual stories, because stories help, right? Stories give us ideas of how we talk about ourselves and how people understand what we know, and in many ways our morals. The reason I told you about the part of my story when I could no longer keep up with Joe's um, benchmarks for me was it talked about me morally, not as a guitar player and whatever, but I just finally said to the guy, I can't do it anymore. I didn't want to lie to him and pretend, right? So when you are able to tell stories and take some of these questions that have so many possible answers, right? If you're authentic, if you tell stories and find ways to use those stories to not only pass along what knowledge you have and some of your kind of overall morality and help you connect with other people, you're doing a great job. And your opportunity to um, successfully interview, anybody can walk into an interview, right? But what I urge people is to try to think about how to make your interviews successful. They may not always work, right? The person on the other side of the desk might hate guitar. He or she may be a non-musical person or strictly want to play a wind instrument. It doesn't matter. But if you give yourself that chance to let them see who you are as a human being, I've said this before in earlier interviews, at dinner later that week or that night, they may be sitting with someone they never met before, and they start talking about music, and you might have given them a story about guitar playing, right? And they can relate your story to somebody else at the table, and maybe that helps them connect you to the other person at the table. I don't want this to be so abstract, because this is what happens, right? And so, giving stock, hope I get this right, um, uh, genuinely boring, traditional answers to questions that could allow you to show who you are is your um, a unique advantage. Okay, so I'll keep talking about it. Context, always try to get context to the story. Context gives you an opportunity to have a conversation. The best interviews are conversations, not interrogations. Um, if you tell a good story, it helps you connect with somebody on the other side, and you want to connect so that maybe they can connect you with somebody else, even if you're not right for them for the job. And your authenticity matters. So those are going to be my cornerstones. They are and they will be moving forward. I hope this makes sense to you. And as always, feel free to write to me with any questions or comments or concerns, and go home and practice your musical instrument. It really is fun to play. Stay safe, everybody. This is Barry Klein.